Hello, everyone. This is Coach Powell. I am so glad to be back with you after taking a week off. Some of you might have noticed that I did not do a broadcast last week because I was in the lovely mountains of Massanutten enjoying some vacation time, some well-deserved, well-earned vacation time with my family. We don't get a chance to get together too often because of the pandemic and various other professional challenges that we have. It's very difficult sometimes for us all to come together, but I was able to have some time alone with my nuclear family, my sister, my wife, my father, and my daughter as we got together and really celebrated just some special time for a whole week together, which is really great. We just hung out basically and talked and got caught up on family issues and ideas and businesses and so on and so forth. So it was really good to spend the time with them and get a chance to let my hair down. As you can see, I let my hair all the way down. I'm usually pretty cleaned up when I come on camera, but today I just felt like I'm just going to relax and chill and try to have a good time. Today's topic is tremendously important. I think a lot of people will get a lot of value out of it. It's important when you think about what you're doing and what you're saying and how you're contributing to exposing the values and the principles and the person that you are, the professional that you are, to other professionals. When you're trying to get people to support and assist you, they need to have the right information, which is why I created TrueVOICE. I created TrueVOICE years ago as a process to help individuals begin to connect with each other on a higher level than they might naturally connect to each other, say in a networking function or in a personal interview. And so it became a staple of how I did business and what I used as a tool to onboard new clients, new prospects, new advisors, or anybody that I would consider a referral source. I use TrueVOICE as a process, a program to help people identify with the needs that we have, both of our needs, so that we can help each other and to really solidify and grow our relationship or start a relationship on a really solid foundation. What I found over the years is that professionals can use this to reconnect with people they may have lost touch with, or other professionals which they may want to get to know, to support better. And using the TrueVOICE interview process really needs to be done well, or it may feel like a bit of an interrogation. And I think that's important to note that it is not an interrogation. It is actually full of tons of very interesting and introspective questions that one might ask when you really want to do two things. One, if you want people to support what you're thinking and what you're doing, they need to know as much about you as possible in order to make them feel safe and comfortable in lending their support. And so in one aspect, TrueVOICE is that. And I'm going to post the primary document that we have about TrueVOICE in the chat. So if you are either on Facebook or on YouTube, you can go to the chat section and download that to your own hard drive. This has been something that we've been exploring and developing for years, but over the last few weeks, we've been discovering several sections of TrueVOICE. The reason why I'm posting it for you now, again, is for those of you who are listening and those who pay attention to the recording of this information. You have the opportunity to download that information and use it as you see fit. If you want to, use certain sections of it to help you develop your professional relationships, I promise your relationships will be all the better for it. If you want to use it to help you kind of grow your own thoughts about how you might articulate who and what you are, this is a beautiful assessment. I like to tell people, it's one of those programs that I put together quite by accident that created a lot of buzz and a lot of information about how people, if you were to answer the TrueVOICE questions for yourself, download the document, print it out, answer the questions for yourself as many times as you want to. you're going to find that you're going to begin to create the language that you need to create that may be in your head, but now you put it on paper, and it gives you an opportunity to articulate quite well, not just who you are, what you're about, but what you need and how you need it. And, it's very, very important to be able to do that. If you really want to create amazing teams, if you want to develop support from people, if you want to give support to others, it's important to know and understand these things as you move through. So TrueVOICE really, really has 5 levels that I'd like to share with everyone. And the first level of TrueVOICE really is about vision, right? We started the first week off with an overview of what TrueVOICE was and how it all worked. And then we started breaking down, for the second week, we started breaking down what vision was all about. Today, we're going to talk about the obstacles that one might face on the way towards achieving one's vision. And understanding how those obstacles affect you and what you can do about those obstacles is going to be critical to all success. Next week, we're going to get into instinctual matters, the things that come from your intuition, that come from your ideology, and the things that you truly believe are possible become your instinctual values and your instinctual character. And we're going to talk about the nature of instinct, how you can use your internal drivers and the things that make you tick to move you forward and others forward. Then we're going to talk about commitment. How do you share the things that you are truly committed with and the things that drive your success and the things that you need to commit to deeper, and how do you express and develop a fuller expression of those commitments? It's critically important. And then last, we're going to talk about environmental issues, the things that social, political, economic, industry issues that necessarily you can't control or influence, but you do have to somehow protect yourself and create mitigation strategies or risk mitigation strategies to deal with those. And so when you figure out, how to do it all, and you'll see that in the TrueVOICE document, the questionnaire, I have some blank sections here for you can fill out, but I also have some sections and some illustrations of, some quotes that I love on how these things might be useful in your life, how these things might be useful in your world. And sometimes, and I'll discuss them with you, I have answered the questions that I find in the TrueVOICE process, because I think sometimes it's important to be able to answer some of these questions on your own, but it's also important to be able to find examples of how others may have answered those questions. So I kind of answered them for myself. I took my own self-assessment and I answered them for myself. And I'll be willing to share some of those answers with you. And it depends on, how engaged you are in this process. As we talk about today, we're talking about obstacles. I got a lot of information and discussion that I'm hoping that we'll be able to have. I'm hoping that we'll be able to share tons of information with each other, and we'll be able to really, really create some relevant situations. I'm expecting that maybe 1 or 2 people might pop into the studio, a guest that I've invited today. We're not sure what time exactly they're going to arrive, but so I'm going to hold them back until I see something from them or understand what's going on with that. And if not, if for some reason they don't show up, then it's just going to be us, and we'll have this intimate time and this intimate moment. I ask that everybody who can, if you haven't already subscribed or found us on Facebook, please subscribe or like us in the places where we are. The more that we can get you to do that, the more this content can be shared and appreciated by others. And obviously, we don't put the work into creating the training and creating the information so that we don't want other people to see it. We want people to share it. We want people to know it. We want people to understand it and get everything they can out of it. So let's get the ball rolling. For those of you who have already done so, I hope you have downloaded the TrueVOICE document. I'm going to post some other things here for you and share with you as we move on to today. If you have any questions, if you have any thoughts along anything that we're going to share and talk to you about today, feel free to post information in the chat. Feel free to ask the question. If you are a business owner or entrepreneur on your own, And I would love it if you would tell us, who you are, where you're coming from. Again, put that information in the chat. Even if you're watching this as a recording later on, don't feel like you can't engage with us. We want to make sure that we give everybody an opportunity to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. Because the more that happens, the better off, the whole world is, and everybody enjoys these moments a lot more. Okay. So I'm going to run through a quick little branding exercise with you all. This is one of my favorite parts of the show. And then we're going to come back and get everything started. Here we go. I tell you what, I get better and better at this graphics and the display and all that kind of stuff. The more we do this, and you think I should be really good at it. It's been almost a year, but I'm a little slow on the uptake sometimes. Especially if it's been more than a year. I got to go back and count how many shows we've done since the beginning of COVID-19, since last March. But we've only missed like 1, maybe 2 weeks out of the whole time. So it really, really is become a part of how we do everything we do. This is Coffee, Tea, You and Me. I'm Coach Powell. I am a developmental coach. My job is to work with entrepreneurs and individuals to help them really shore up their strengths that they need to shore up and create strategies and techniques that move them forward. I love doing training. I love doing exercises that help people, find the light that's within themselves and to really figure out, how to really put the strengths on display and how to, use the weaknesses that they have as opportunities to challenge others to step up and play. So it's all about creating amazing teams. It's all about developing positive leadership. Everything I do drives that direction towards a SWAM, small women-owned and minority-owned business leaders, to help them find their footing and regain everything they need to regain so they can move forward in a positive and phenomenal way. You'll find that most of my training is based first on biblical text and things that I've discovered from my exploration of the Bible specifically, and then I move on to ideas that I've gotten from more contemporary authors or some of the quotes and things that we'll share with you in my interpretation of those quotes in any topic that I come up with. And then we build exercises and we build team building strategies to help people really, really embrace the lessons that we share and talk about, because I think it's important for people to work together as much as possible. And I'm going to ask you for tons of engagement as you go through what we're talking about in the next hour. Make sure that, again, you post any information that you want in the chat, that you share any ideas, any thoughts, any questions that you may have, and I will take some breaks during the time that we have to go through some of that information and maybe to share it with the rest of us. Some of it I'll post on screen. So if you have something really incredible, something that I really think is really exciting, I'll definitely post it on screen so it'll be recorded, and I'll definitely give you that shout out that I think you deserve for engaging. And the more you engage, the better off this is for everybody. So let's not be shy about how we engage or when we engage. Just go at it. Today's topic is truly about obstacles that you face, and how do you deal with and express those obstacles. And the 3 major questions that we ask when we put together TrueVOICE initially were these: what are the obstacles and challenges that stand in the way of you accomplishing the top 3 goals that you may have mentioned when you talked about your vision, right? And it's very, very important that you get a handle on these obstacles, that you really, really look at the challenges that you have and really begin to discover them and, put them on paper, write them down. There's something expressly interesting about putting your challenges on paper and really, really analyzing it. A couple other questions that you may want to ask and you may want to answer for yourself, either in the TrueVOICE assessment or just on your own whenever you feel like it in your journal, right? What are the most important things that you can do to begin to overcome the obstacles? Now, in overcoming obstacles, you're going to find an internal strength. You're going to find a character that maybe you haven't really sought out or thought about. And a lot of times when you think about this and you spend time in your practice, when you're meditating or you're practicing your mindfulness practice, I call it prayer. But when you're in those quiet, still moments and you're thinking about the challenges that are in front of you on any given day, how are you coming up with and developing technique, strategies, and opportunities to overcome those challenges? Because I think that the more you can come up with, the more you can develop wisdom around being an overcomer and challenging the status quo and stretching yourself into areas where you might be a little uncomfortable. The more you do that, the stronger you become, the stronger the people around you and their connection to you becomes, and people begin to rely on you. They begin to seek you out. They begin to explore your credibility in different ways. The third question we ask when we're talking about obstacles and we're helping people to understand and express what those challenges may be, those opportunities may be, is asking the question about, now you know what you need to do, how do you acquire the resources to get it done? How do you acquire the resources, and how do you practice and improve, and how do you stretch yourself so that you can embrace new ideas and concepts to really, really bust through and overcome any obstacles that you have? I love this picture I have here, and this is on, I don't know, even know what page it is, but it's a picture of a young man, a young professional that is leaping from one section of a bridge to another section. And I like that because I find that most of us try to do that every day. We're all overwhelmed, and we're all kind of subject to the world around us, such that we often have to overcome insurmountable obstacles. We have to take big leaps of faith. We have to jump into the void sometimes. We have to do it, because if we don't, then I think that the problems that we face are going to overwhelm us, and we can't afford to sit still. We can't afford to make light of the issues that we have to tackle in order to get to our goals. One of the statements that I continuously make when it comes to dealing with obstacles is the fact that obstacles of all types hinder and prevent any progress. They're a force to be reckoned with, and simply because they're there to either be something that strengthens you and creates a challenge for you and creates an opportunity for you to grow, or they're there to divert you. And either way, they become an impediment that slows down your progress and helps and keeps you from moving forward. And so you have to really, as best as you can, really determine along your route or whatever you're trying to path, you're trying to go on. You really have to look forward and look out and look at them and really see, okay, what are these obstacles, and do I have what it takes to overcome them? Because there's going to be some you can see and some you cannot see. And how you behave with these obstacles and what you choose and how you choose to behave during and through these obstacles will sharpen your character. They will help develop your processes and just make you a better person if you approach them correctly. If you approach them incorrectly, either the seen or unseen obstacles, they can be really damaging to you, to your personality, to your self-concept, to your self-respect, to your dignity. A lot of what you are and who you are as a professional can be tremendously damaged by not approaching the obstacles that you face with you and your team correctly. And so we're going to talk for the rest of this day about, how do you do that? How do you assess an obstacle? How do you overcome an obstacle? What do you do to recognize? How do you separate between an obstacle that is there to stop you and divert you versus an obstacle that's there to challenge you to overcome and grow you and your team, right? And it's very important that you grow in wisdom and discernment to get that happen. Recognizing your hurdles and obstructions to your progress helps you to begin the process of negotiating. The more you understand them, the more time you spend dealing with them, look for them, find ways to create strategies and techniques to get yourself around, through, and over them. The more you do that, the more confidence that you build, the more your team builds confidence in you as their leader, in you as a teammate, the more you can participate in that opportunity of developing and understanding obstacles that you face. It is very, very important. Sometimes those obstacles are internal, sometimes those obstacles are external. Internal obstacles, what we would call, if we were to do a SWOT analysis, would be your weaknesses, right, that you have internal to you in your team that you need to deal with. All right, you need to. So if there's weaknesses, some weaknesses that you could just ignore, but other weaknesses you may have to do something about, or you won't be able to face the obstacles and challenges that are in front of you, right? The other obstacles are external to you. We call those threats, right? In the SWOT analysis, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Those external obstacles that are out there for you are things that you need to that will just slow you down, but will absolutely stop you from moving forward and make it impossible for you to move forward if you don't negotiate them well. And you have to know those. And so really, if a great way to begin to deal with any obstacles or challenges that you face is to do a SWOT analysis, is really to sit down with your team and take all the time you need to explore and uncover your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. The more time you spend with that, the more you can start to develop strategies and techniques to highlight your strengths and diminish your weaknesses. I can't say that enough. And let's get into some of the further training that I've created. I have another document that I put some considerable time and effort into putting together for you guys. This is a training manual. It's probably going to be, the second chapter in a book that I'm going to write at the end of this, and I got some examples that I'm going to share with you of how you can get to that book. But the training manual is the part of the training manual that will be here that deals with obstacles. I mean, I think it's phenomenal. I put a lot of effort and energy into it, and you're going to be the first to see it today. As a matter of fact, there's no one who has had an opportunity to break this open. I have an article on LinkedIn that touches on some of the information that I'm going to share here with you. But in reality, this is literally the first time I've unveiled this, and I'm going to make a copy right now of the link, and I'm going to post the link in the chat for everyone to see so that you can check that out. That should be a PDF file that really deals with an article, and a long article that I wrote, and I don't have time. I call it a training manual because it's extra long, right? I don't have time to go into all of it with you today, but I want to make sure that you have it accessible to you, and so you can go along with me as I explore some pieces that I will share with you that I think are important, vital to this conversation we have about how we deal with our obstacles and challenges and how we talk about and share them. And I'm going to start you off with a story. This is the story of Olivia. Olivia found herself between a rock and a hard place one too many times on the job, mostly because she wasn't sure that she was ready to handle the tumultuous level of responsibilities that were being thrown at her. She just kept getting assignment after assignment and more projects than she could currently imagine or accomplish. Before she could wrap her mind around what to do about this thing, here comes another thing, and then another. And at the same time, COVID-19 was hitting really, really hard. Does any of this sound familiar to you? Well, the problems for Olivia started about 3 years ago when she moved here to Northern Virginia with two kids, aged 6 and 10. She came from Richmond up to upstate a little bit just to accept a management partner job at a major retail or major regional law firm here in Northern Virginia. And although corporate law was the firm's bread and butter, they found themselves diverting more and more into the kind of pro bono work that they were doing in employment law. And they really had to figure out, how they were going to deal with this, because obviously because of COVID-19, executives and people were getting fired and offloaded by companies, over and over. And it was very difficult because everybody was coming at them saying, we heard that you guys are doing a pretty good job with this unemployment discrimination, and we want to make sure that we take advantage of this. So if you guys had anything that you could do, so they just literally were overwhelmed with unemployment cases and the people who wanted their attention. Well, it created a logjam and a lot of disgruntled and desperate clients, because you can imagine, if you lost a six-figure job, which is really pretty much everything that's going on here in the Washington metropolitan area, in any significant way. If you lost that kind of job, then it's gonna have a deep impact on what you can do for your families, how you can even recover from the pandemic and so on and so forth. So it was very, very important. But this was a nightmare that her and her other partners sat around, trying to figure out, what they're going to do about this and how they're going to continue their firm. And if they're not getting the kind of work they normally get, and the courts are closed, and even people are less likely to come to any negotiations or agreements, how are they going to survive this and continue to serve the public in a way that's going to be meaningful? So Olivia had to figure out a lot. She had to figure out how to hire more people, create and update workflow systems. She had to figure out how to create a new CRM system. And she had to have a brand new accountability program for their 120-person workforce. On top of all that, she had to figure out ways to supplement the education of her young children, because she couldn't just set them in front of a computer screen all by themselves all day and hope to command their attention, as school has been virtual and all that kind of stuff. So she had to do all that, and she had to do it all by herself, because the reality is the reason why she came to Northern Virginia in the first place was she was getting divorced, and she had to deal with that on top of the pandemic, the new job, the children's new educational experience, trying to figure out how all that works in a new space. It obviously was a harrowing thing for Olivia to have to do. And this is enough to drive literally anybody crazy, right? She was sure she didn't get to find the way on top of this thing. She'd probably have a nervous breakdown. And, at least if not that, she'd definitely be miserable forever. She saw no way out of it and no way to get around it. And just like most professionals, Olivia realized and needed to begin to appreciate that, life offers you these challenges. Life offers all of us these challenges, that we're either present and available to use and appreciate as those challenges strengthen us. Sometimes we see them as just obstacles and barriers, but sometimes we learn that if we choose correctly, they present themselves as opportunities, challenges. And so the questions we ask around them really dictate a lot of times our perspective. And we're going to share with you today a lot of how those questions and how those techniques can be used to reframe situations and to minimize the risk of complete emotional and mental damage that could be done if you don't do this right. Okay, so let's look a little bit about, let me see if there's any questions in the chat so far. All right, there's no questions in the chat so far, so I'm going to keep the party going. If you're out there and you want to tell us, where you are, where you're coming from, how you met us, or how you even came into please put that information in the chat. That'll be helpful for me, so when I'm doing audience analysis and figuring out, who's attracted to this and who's the best for. So please tell me, if you're out there, who you are and where you're coming from, how you met us, all that kind of good stuff. I see a couple people in the audience that'd be really helpful, and I'm going to keep this party going. So when you look at in ancient wisdom, ancient texts, the Bible, what does it say? You'll find that it says that some of the most powerful human thought in dealing with and overcoming obstacles have already been written in this book. And I like using the Bible because I know that it informs a lot of what we experience, especially those in Western nations, when it comes to the foundational elements of how our corporate law works, when it comes to, how our strategies and thoughts of how we've developed our communities and everything works. A lot of it comes back to those founders of the nations and how they have interpreted what they thought they saw in the Bible. And so it's always useful, I think, to look at that as a source document to really understand, how people have functioned. The Bible says one of the biggest lessons that you learn about dealing with obstacles or any kind of hardship or difficulty is that you have the choice of how you see it. You have the choice of how you think about it. And this power, this choice is backed by universal principles. And if you understand the universal principles of how literally everything in the world works, then you're able to select the choices that allow you to win. But now here it is. It requires you to be educated. It requires you to know basically what those principles are so that you can align your vision, your values, your steps, everything that you do to order yourself according to the truth of the principles that you have uncovered and understand. And you can uncover these principles in many, many ways. Obviously, one, read your Bible. Two, another is pay attention to all your teachers, your classes, people that are running in front of you, mentors, advisors, counselors, therapists, coaches, friends, whatever you have, pay attention, stay involved, get engaged, make sure that you are aware so that you can improve your social connections and you can improve your social intelligence and your emotional intelligence and strengthen yourself so that you know how to deal with obstacles as they come. You should have a procedure in place, written, well articulated, well thought through procedure on how you're going to deal with obstacles that are known and how you're going to deal with obstacles that are unknown, because having those procedures in place allow you to not be as reactive as you might be left without those procedures. The Bible also goes on to say that it's important for you to own your own perspective. You need to develop what you need to do to make sure that you are doing everything you can to own your perspective, to tap into your purpose, to really fulfill the mission that you were placed here to fulfill. And you do have a destiny. You do have something that is uniquely yours to do, a job, a responsibility, an opportunity to create for yourself and with others, obviously, and for the benefit of others, something that requires you and helps you to become meaningful, significant, and relevant in our world. And if you look at the vision section of the TrueVOICE questionnaire that I shared with you earlier, begin to ask yourself those vision questions that will help you start to understand and find places where you may consider a destiny calling, right? You might consider your destiny that's out there for you as a way to embrace that. Now, you also want to be able to, and we talked about this earlier, not just to share your weaknesses and challenges, but to embrace them. Don't ignore them, don't run away from them, because you can't fake it, and hope to be credible at the same time. These things do not work. And I'm not saying that there's not moments where you have to act as if, I love that the strategy that I learned from reading. This is a book by Konstantin Stanislavski. It says The Actor Prepares, right? And in this book, Stanislavski reminds people who want to go into the theater and become thespians, that it's important to prepare so well that you become the character, right? To act and to develop the backstory and to explore the reality of the current situation so well that a part of the character that you're playing becomes you. And that's the same thing I suggest that you do. Don't fake it, but become it. But you become it by emulating. You become it by studying. You become it by practicing and rehearsing and doing everything that you can to turn your strengths into superpowers and follow where they can lead you. One of my greatest, processes that I created in the not only the TrueVOICE process, but also in the Vision Quest process, was an understanding of your strengths and their trajectory, right? So if you look at the strengths that you currently have, and you really, really ask yourself, if I were to put this strength, this talent, this gift of mine on steroids and become world class, one of the best that has ever been at this thing, what could it do for my life? And more importantly, what could it do for the lives of those that I love and care about? And I promise you, you're going to come up with some vision ideas if you learn to look at things through that future quest lens, or that lens of I call it 2020 visioning, right? So if you could look backwards, if you could push yourself in that vision of the future, then look backwards on everything that you may have had to overcome in order to do that, you will also have discovered there are obstacles that you had to overcome on your way to this vision. And I call it the 2020 backwards planning because, a lot of times we don't know how to overcome some of the things we've overcome. But if we look back on the things that we've already overcome, we realize that we are overcomers. And they say hindsight is 2020 vision. So you look behind yourself, you start to realize that there are things that you are good at dealing with. There are things that you have, there's lessons that you've learned, there's an armament that you've built, there's a strength that you've gathered from just overcoming the obstacles of your past. Whether you recognize them at the time for what they are, if you look back, you can see things that you probably couldn't have saw by looking forward. But it's the same thing. If you cast your vision well enough into the future, right, you can look back from that position and really look back and see what obstacles you may have had to overcome, and then plan to overcome those obstacles. So another thing you want to make sure that you do is when you're talking about your obstacles and the things that you're experiencing, you don't want to be a burden on others. Yes, you're going to have challenges. Yes, things suck right now, right? That's all true, right? But when you lay those complaints and that drama on other people, that really doesn't solve the problem. What really solves the problem is you thinking through what a possible solution might be to this particular problem, and then sharing those possible solutions, not sharing the problem, but those possible solutions with people that you feel have and may access the resources that you will need to begin to overcome those obstacles, because they can give you additional information as to what this obstacle really is and how easy this obstacle is to overcome or not, or who they may know that might help you assess and deal with this obstacle a lot better. But if you are a complainer, if you're always the kind of person that's laying out, drama after drama after drama unnecessarily, it really doesn't help you to develop relationships, right? It helps you, in fact, to destroy relationships, because where people might be willing to help you because they may have a feeling that they could do something meaningful, significant, and relevant, right? They may have that feeling if they know what your challenges are and they know that you're committed to facing those challenges with or without their intervention. They will be more happy to provide you with solutions. And another thing I want to give you on this one, I talk about this all the time. When people find out later on, especially people who are the people who care for you, right? People who are your stakeholders, and people who are supporters of yours, and people who are referral sources, or people who are committed to supporting you in some way, shape, or form. When they find out later on that you were facing with and dealing with obstacles that you didn't share with them in the moment, it doesn't tend to go well. They tend to resent the fact that you didn't call on them. And they ask themselves questions. They ask you, may even ask you questions. Well, didn't you trust me? Why didn't you tell me? I wish you had let me know this was happening. I would have been there for you. I would have at least understood what you're dealing with. I may have offered a supportive hand. I may have offered some encouraging words. I may have brought some inspiration in the form of a connection with somebody who could help and actually help you with the resources that you need. The thought that we should keep our obstacles to ourselves and keep our challenges to ourselves, I reject wholeheartedly, because I realize that The more you share what you're facing and what you're dealing with and what you're committed to overcoming, by the way, the more you will inspire others to step up. The more you inspire them to do what you need to do. The Bible always also tells us that we are to suffer wisely, right? It's important to realize that there's a difference between pain and suffering. You know, those old strategies, those old techniques people have told you, you have learned in motivational speeches over the past. People may say the suffering breeds character. And in a large part, there's some truth to that. But I want you to, when you think about this, explore the difference between pain, chosen suffering, and endearing suffering, that or long-lasting suffering, long suffering, right? Pain is unavoidable. We're all going to experience pain somehow, some way. Suffering, though, we get to choose how we experience suffering. We get to choose what we do about suffering. We get to choose how we perceive suffering. We get to choose how we deal with suffering. And when you think about that, when you learn the techniques and the art, and it's a lot of links in this document that will help you share, how to reframe an issue, a situation, so that it's a temporary pain versus a long protracted suffering. But it's all about you establishing the right mental orientation to it and choosing the right path and the right perspective on how you need to see it. If you do well, then you can become a way maker. You can become a person who develops new ways of looking at a problem, and then developing new strategies because of the new perspective that only you have, and you can become a way maker. I'm not saying choose always to try to become a way maker. I am saying that there will be moments that are specific to you, just you, that better than anybody else, based on your experience, based on your beliefs, based on the things that you have knowledge of and mastery and wisdom of, that are uniquely yours, and that you might be able to chart a new course, a new path, a new way, a new strategy that no one else has thought of or come up with, once you develop a level of mastery and expertise in a certain direction, right? So understand that, and when you do that, when you know how to do that really well, it requires a belief in your gifts, right? A lot of times I've read and understood and taken classes in the Sunday school and all that kind of stuff, and there's a quote from the Bible, I can't remember where it is, it says your gifts will make a way for you. And that is, it helps you to pay attention to your natural abilities, your natural talents, your natural gifts, the things that have been bestowed upon you that you may not have understood before you really, really looked at them. And once you identify those gifts, then you can start to begin to figure out, how do I develop these? How do I move these forward? Who do I need to talk to that's going to help me strengthen this thing and really, really show that I believe in this gift? And because you believe in this gift, it becomes, or several talents and gifts that you may have, you start to see that this is where your character begins to form in a direction, again, that promotes your destiny. So it's very, very important. I always like to remind people when we're talking about obstacles. There are obstacles, like I said earlier, there are obstacles that are there for you to overcome and embrace and move through and grow from. And there's obstacles that are actually there to redirect you. This next section that I want to share with you is really about understanding that there are obstacles that are there, and they're there to turn you around. They're there to redirect you. They're there not for you to keep busting your head against it. They're there to make you look at this differently and choose a different path towards your ultimate destiny. this is there on purpose, right? So think about that. Dragging your team to try to negotiate an obstacle that is there to redirect you, forcing them to deal with the suffering of this could be devastating, right? Smarter for you to allow that obstacle to do what it was there to do, which is redirect you, embrace this new path, and go where the obstacle wants you to go. Allow yourself to be flexible. Allow yourself to be resilient. Allow yourself and your team to move a different way. Accept it. This is something that is meant to turn me, not something that I have to overcome. Now, a lot of you go and look at that and go, well, that's quitting. No, that's choosing a different route. Right? And I want you to think about that. It's not quitting, it's choosing a different route. Because, you know, if you're plowing through to your goals, if you're plowing through to your vision, if you're plowing through to your destiny, then you cannot quit. You have to keep going, but you don't have to keep going the same way. You can choose a different path. There are many different paths that you could choose to get you to the one you chose. Obviously, this obstacle that maybe you saw it, maybe you thought you could get around it, maybe you realize you can't. Maybe you never saw the obstacle and now you realize there it is, and now you can't deal with it. Your team, you don't have the strength, you have the technique, you don't have the talent, you don't have what it takes to overcome this obstacle. You gotta go a different way. You don't have a choice. Acceptance is a part of understanding, you know, what those obstacles are there for you. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. We'll talk about environmental situations situations that are not in your control. We're going to talk about that, you know, for just a little bit. The next thing you want to do is you want to look for resistance. I love resistance. Resistance is an important aspect to your growth and development. If you're not stretching yourself, if you're not pushing yourself beyond the boundaries of your current abilities, then you're not growing. And you're not growing, you're not getting stronger. If you're not getting stronger, you're not going to be able to withstand and overcome the huge challenges that might be in front of you that you don't even know about. And so you have to get stronger. The more you look for and challenge yourself for obstacles that you know you can overcome, but you're going to need some help, right? Those obstacles that you know that you can get around if you have the right resources, if you have the right tools, then go get the right resources and the right tools and stretch yourself and grow. You got to do it. If you don't, then you're going to find that you get complacent. You're going to find it's easy to quit. You're going to find it's easy to see this obstacle that is surmountable as insurmountable, but it's only insurmountable because you're too hard-headed to go and get the resources that you need to challenge it, to really, really go at it. And I think that that's an important thing. And also notice that, and this has been true for me in my life and my roles. You know, if it's something obstacle that I perceive that's in front of me, and I share this with people that I know and respect who've overcome similar obstacles in the past or understand a little bit something about this thing, you know, usually what happens is they remind me that I pretty much have what it takes to overcome this thing. I just don't know that I do. And then it's my responsibility to go back into, you know, my toolbox and, you know, sharpen up what I have to, the axes I have to sharpen, and, you know, reiterate and re-understand the wisdom messages that have been delivered to me over the past, and commit to the values and principles that I hold dear, and then go at it. Take copious notes, you know, make sure that I'm paying attention to the things that are going well and the things that are not going so well, and doing with that. Along the way, I'm gonna get an opportunity to let this obstacle help me grow. It's resistance that I'm chasing it, but I'm using it to strengthen me. I'm using it to give myself what I need to become an overcomer, to become better at what I do and who I am. Now, this is all stuff that comes directly from the Bible. There's more information about how to deal with your obstacles that's more contemporary, that's in the document as well, and comes from some of the quotes that I've discovered. I love this one by Roy Bennett. I'm going to read it to you. Bennett says, the biggest wall you have to climb is the one you build in your mind. Never let your mind talk you out of your dreams, trick yourself into giving up. Never let your mind become the greatest obstacle to success. To get your mind on the right track, then the rest will follow. It's very, very important. The mind is totally an amazing thing. And it is possible for you to take control of your conscious mind. Can't speak to your unconscious mind, but I think you can even control a lot of that with practice, right? You can take control of your conscious mind, and exercises that we have here to help you do that are absolutely phenomenal. And I suggest you go through them, and I'll quickly buzz through them, but there's links to documents and information that you can get to right here in the training manual. Some of my favorites are these 5 right here. Be aware, be prepared, right? You need to make sure that everything that you can do to espouse yourself of the knowledge that you need to have and the information that you need to have, so that you can prepare yourself appropriately. Important, right? Number 2, you have to name it. You have to literally, I love writing it down. I love saying, okay, here is the problem. And I write it down in as specific details as I possibly can, right? And then after I write it down, number 3, I'm going to replace that problem with a challenge. Here's where I'm challenged, and here's where the opportunities are for me to grow inside this problem. So here's how I can use this problem to help me overcome. Here's how I can use this problem to help me become a bigger, better version of myself, right? And so I'm going to replace that opportunity. I'm going to rename it. I'm going to replace it from a problem. I'm going to make it an opportunity. I'll make it a challenge, right? Now, once I've done that, I have to continuously be mindful of the habits that I need to change, or the directions that I'm going. And so I'm going to create, maybe affirmation statements, or I'm going to help myself to move through with, a great amount of, I have to figure out what I'm going to sacrifice. I have to figure out what I'm going to give up in order to embrace this new idea or this new thing that I have to embrace in order to overcome this obstacle, right? I got to do it, right? Number 5, I got to make the choice. I got to make the choice to accept it for what it is, to accept the challenge for what it is, to understand it for what it is, and to go for it with everything I have. And if I'm not willing to commit all the way, then I'm not fully making the choice. I'm sort of tiptoeing. I'm like, oh, I'm going to test this out. I'm going to try this. I'm going to stick my pinky in, my little toe in, but I'm not really going to go full all in. And, I find that I grow best, I grow strongest when I fully commit. And if I don't fully commit, and I sort of half-heartedly commit, then I get half-hearted, lackluster results. And, that's probably going to be true for you. There's an old saying, right? You reap what you sow. If you don't put it all in, if you don't till the soil, if you don't weed the garden, if you don't, plant the right seeds at the right time, if you don't, invest in the right kinds of situations, if you don't, really, really give it everything you can, then you cannot expect to get abundance out of that. It's not going to happen. Another thought that comes to mind is from the wisdom of Vera Nazarian about practice. A lot of times we have this notion that we need to wait until it's almost time for us to get going, to start practicing. I say practice as soon as you start to realize, begin your practice process. As soon as you start to realize that there's an obstacle out there that's going to challenge you at some point in time in the future. That's something you got to start your process right away. Start your planning, start your reconnaissance, right? You're going to get as much information about it as you can. Start studying and getting the knowledge that you need to get in order to become stronger in the moment, so that when you're ready to deal with it, you got everything you need to give. You got to do it. You can't procrastinate. Plan, practice, prepare. And then when the time is there for you to start going, well, then get going. Now, once you've practiced and you've prepared all you possibly can, you're actually ready to go. So even if you haven't, even if it's not time for you to go, you don't rest and relax. You just get going. You get started early. That's okay. It's okay to be over prepared because you get to start early. But if you don't plan and prepare as soon as possible, then you might miss a window where you can't grow. You can't, if you can't grow anymore, you can't do anything else to get yourself ready. You can't do anything. You've already done all the practice, all the rehearsals, everything you need to do, gathered all the resources, found all the people, recruited the team, got them all ready. They're all drills, exercises, everybody's ready to go. Then you can't hold them back anymore. You gotta let the hounds loose, man. You gotta go. It's very, very important, because if you wait, then you will find atrophy sets in, right? If you wait and you're ready to go, but you don't go for some crazy reason, then I would suggest that you put yourself in a bad situation where you're going to have to keep training at a high level of excellence, and you may burn out resources that you need to do to have because they got to recover, and you don't want to do that. So you want to make sure that you time that to the best of your ability so that you're ready to go. But get started now. Don't wait ever. No, if it's important, then it's something that you should jump into right now. You should get it going right now. Spend some time on it regularly every day, 15-20 minutes right now, because it's going to help you later on to know that you've done your best, and to give your best effort and know that you've done it. Choose joy and exhilaration in the doing. This is one of my favorite aspects of understanding how do you deal with obstacles, right? And again, back to reframing, once you begin looking at an obstacle as not something that's going to cause you pain and suffering, but as much as it's going to cause you to stretch and grow, it becomes a challenge. It becomes an opportunity. And the more you can reframe that, and the more you can begin to discover ways to attack it, the more you can enjoy that process, knowing that you will be giving your best effort to this thing. You will know that you'll be putting all the resources that you need to put on it. You'll know that you're training yourself to the highest level that you possibly can train. You and your team will be running at a high level, at a high pace, right? So you'll know all this, and so you can enjoy this process. You enjoy the process of execution. Enjoy the process of going at things. It's only when you're not ready. When you try to face an obstacle, it creates a tremendous amount of stress. Instead of having the anticipation of overcoming something or moving forward on something, you're going to have the dread of, the inevitable, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to deal with this. I think we're going to fail. I'll try to figure out how to make the fail a little better than not failing. That's no way to approach an obstacle. You want to approach it with joy, with exhilaration. Obviously, you want to stretch for the you want more. You are, then a perception of your capabilities. It goes in front of you that you can knock it out easily without any question. You don't need any people. You don't need any resources. You need God. You don't need anything. You got a feeling your goals aren't enough. In that regard, I think you are going to let yourself down, because you'll be doing what you do. You just be who you are, and things will happen. But they're not even achievements that you can respect if you haven't gotten better, if you haven't grown, if you haven't seen things from a different perspective, if you share a new reality, then you're just really being stagnant. It's like life works like this. This is explanation to people a lot of times. You're a pebble. Each of us is a pebble in a stream. We get tossed into the stream. We ride along with the current for a couple seconds, but eventually we fall and we settle. You don't want to be that pebble. You want to be, instead of the pebble that got thrown in the stream, you want to be the cork that got thrown into the stream. Because what happens to the cork? The cork rises right? Doesn't fall to the bottom of the sediment, but rises and keeps going along, flows along with the stream. But even the cork doesn't go as fast as the stream because there's resistance. And so ultimately, you want to know way ahead of time where this stream is leading, where it's going, where it's going to bend, where it's going to be opportunities for you to maybe throw some paddles and some oars in there and get in front of things. You want to be able to do that because that's performance. That's performance at a high level. And unless you are trying to purposefully be better, be faster, no more, then I got a feeling you're the pebble. You're going to go as far as you can go, but then everything is going to come rushing right past you, and you're just going to settle. And maybe you roll along slowly, maybe you get grinded down to sand, but ultimately, the world's going to pass you by, and you're going to be pretty much ado about nothing. You don't want that. You want to be able to keep moving forward, keep being stronger, keep growing. So you got to stretch yourself. You got to get different perspectives. You got to ask people what they think. You have to really, really look at the diversity on your team in terms of not just race or ethnic makeup, but age, and look across socioeconomic processes to see if you are looking at things from perspectives of every potential customer, or you're looking at things from the perspective of every potential buyer, every potential stakeholder, every potential person who might support your efforts. Because the more perspective gathering you can do, the more you can begin to customize process and programs that link right to that market or that sub-market, right? This niche is very, very important. You want to create alignment with these ideas. You want to make sure that as you are growing, you're creating alignment with your highest values. You're creating alignment with your greatest beliefs. You're creating alignment with to be true, the principles that work best for you, your career, and the what's the word I'm looking for? The trajectory of your entire industry, right? You want to look at how that's working and ask yourself, are you in line? Are you in line with where this thing is going? Are you getting left behind because you're scared of technology, or you don't want to make the investment in learning the new strategies and new techniques that are going to be available and useful in the new marketplace as it changes? And I promise you, by the way, there's new markets coming and being born every day because of this pandemic. And you have to figure out how and where you're going to play and how and where you're going to enter that market, no matter whether you're going to work for somebody else, you're going to own your own processes or programs, or you're going to try some new strategies in your business. No matter what, you've got to choose some different paths. You got to choose different wise paths. I call this wisdom pathing, right? You have to make sure that you're choosing to deal with the greatest amount of wisdom you possibly can gather, and do it in a way that's going to help yourself and help others. Along the way of that, you're demonstrating greatness, right? You are becoming exactly what you are supposed to become, and you're doing it in the most expeditious and strength-based way possible. This is critical. The more you can use your obstacles to develop your greatness, and everybody sees it. This is very important about that. People, especially on your team, people who are, I mentioned before, stakeholders, referral sources, supporters, they need to see and witness the growth. They need to see and witness where you started and where you're coming from. They don't see you climb to the mountain. They just know you got to the top of the mountain. Well, you could have been dropped off by helicopter. And that's okay. You still got to the top of the mountain, but it's different when you climbed up that bad boy, right? It's different when you pulled together resources and strategies and techniques, and you used the skills and talents that you have to get yourself up that mountain, right? Much different than if you had somebody drop you off. Now you get to ski down. That's great. Not as much, not as interesting, not worthy of investment, not worthy of attention, really. If you did the easy way, right? I'm not saying always choose the hard way. I'm saying choose a way that stretches you. Choose a way that helps you to grow. Don't choose the way that is just expeditious, because that's not always valuable. It's not always meaningful to you or anybody else. You know, you found somebody who had the talent and you just rode their back up the mountain. That's great. But it didn't require a stretch on your end, on your part. And so how do you grow from that? How do you grow from just taking advantage of somebody else's gifts? Which is a whole different talk, right? So in conclusion, I'm gonna read you the conclusion statements, but then I'm gonna answer any questions that anybody has. So if you have any questions, make sure about anything we said before, make sure you put that in the chat. If you're just introducing yourself or just coming on, make sure that you let us know, who you are, where you're from. I'd like to know that as much as possible. I'll definitely try to give you a shout out. I see a couple of my friends from Facebook, a couple of my friends from LinkedIn, a couple of my friends from YouTube who are already here. So please, put your information in the chat so we know who you are and how you're coming about and what you're getting from this. And having said that, I'm gonna read our conclusion statement. And if you look at the last page of the document I'm sharing with you, then you'll be able to see it. In conclusion, from the most powerful quotes in the Bible, we learn that it is in our nature to deal directly with pain and suffering. We are designed this way by the most powerful God, empowered to use our well-earned shared wisdom and knowledge to help us negotiate various complications and enable ourselves to make choices about which of the obstacles placed before us are opportunities to learn and grow, and which are there to redirect us and keep us on course towards our destiny. We see that we can control our perceptions about every challenge and think about any hardships and difficulties in a way that inspires growth and resilience. This power of choice, which should be used for good, will never leave us helpless and alone, and we can use it to readjust how we deal with impediments and barriers, to strengthen ourselves and empower others. The literature also teaches us many of the same lessons that we've already learned from the Bible. In addition, we learn how important, though, that it is to practice introspection and find joy in the small things. We become aware of how important it is to use our capacity to practice, rehearse, and prepare all that is needed to tackle any challenges with the right resources and the right frame of mind. We discover how to achieve great alignment and to grow, even as we demonstrate true greatness. I wish you the best, and I wish you the greatness that you deserve in tackling your obstacles, sharing them with others, understanding how to articulate them well so that you can find the support that you need, find the energy that you need, tap into your drive, and grow. This is Coach Powell. I'm signing out. I had a great time, guys. Get ready to go do some significant work. If there's no questions, or if anybody is not here that wants to shout out, then we're going to sign out for today, and we're going to come back next week. Next week is going to be super fantastic, fragilistic, expialidocious. We're going to talk next week about your instinct, your intuition, and how to use and tap in to your internal drives to move you forward, to help others move forward. It's going to be amazing. I hope you're with me. Hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. And we'll see you next Friday. Have a great one, guys.